Hey there, welcome to another episode of Coffee Solo, a rare midweek episode. I really need to start intermingling these episodes with my other various productions. But today, November 12th, 2025, the time is 10:59, and we call it 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here in Greater Vegas. Making this episode 2025, that's 2025-111201. The title, I've done minimal preparation today, trying to become more spontaneous. Today's title and topic, trust me, I always say title and topic for my other episodes. It's not really the topic, but it's a topic. The summary of today's episode, a quick take on my engagements on the sidewalks and streets of the world. This is going to be quick, so it's not comprehensive. And a couple of other things going on today. Pardon me. I'm drinking some yerba mate. Get some energy back. I recently talked about how my caffeine habit has been on pause. I've reduced, not completely, not done, but I haven't had a cup of coffee in a week. So I think my caffeine fast is going to come to an end today. I got to get back on. But either way, this episode, as is always the case with Coffee Solo, I was going to say Cafe Genius, Coffee Solo episodes appear first on Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/DanHugo/posts. And then they get posted to Spotify for creators, and they fan out to YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Amazon Podcasts, and there's an RSS feed and the whole bit. So, okay, that's... got that done. I don't want to spend too much time on the links, but I also need people to know where to find stuff so I can hopefully have more listeners and talk to more people. Why else do this, right? Talking to myself, I do that all the time. The outline, very brief. So sidewalk engagements. I was thinking about this today. So yesterday, it's probably like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's getting dark here earlier now, of course, with daylight savings time, falling back, spring forward, fall back, the memory device for DST. So Pacific Standard Time here in Vegas, once again. So it's getting darker earlier than normal. It's getting dark at just the right time, really. I was out walking, my usual, my constitutional. I'm back up to, for those keeping track of my ankle injury recovery, I'm back up to walking the big loop, which is just about 3 miles. So I just go out, pop in some earbuds, listen to an audiobook, wander around the neighborhood. So 3 miles. So I was just about getting home. I was very near the Smith's grocery store, which is literally across the street from where I live. It's, parking lots and whatnot. I'm on the back side of the Smith's, so it's not... The entrance is around the building, but I generally walk when I'm out walking if I need to stop by the grocery store rather than walking directly across the street. I figure, that's a good excuse to get in a quick 3 mile walk. So the grocery store is either across the street or 3 miles away, it's 1.5 miles away if I were to walk a round trip. Anyway, I'm just about to get home. I'm gonna cut across the little parking lot. I don't know if you can hear emergency vehicles, production by street. There's a little like curb cutting across the classic cutting through the grass, the user experience image I'm sure people have seen. So I normally enter the parking lot through over a curb, up a little mild hill, and then through the asphalt part of the parking lot onto Smith's. I'm carrying a shoulder, not quite a messenger bag, but kind of it's a really good canvas bag that I picked up at a trade show for free, and it's great for groceries. So there you go. So I'm carrying that, just doing my thing, listening to a book, a DK book on science. I don't know if you've ever heard these DK books. There's just a smattering of scientific fact. So I'm cruising along, and this guy there. It's not too common. I live in the burbs. I live in the Centennial Hills area of Las Vegas, if you're familiar. So I'm walking along. I see a guy. It looks like he's on his cell phone, but he's got a bunch of stuff. and I can see up ahead by 50 yards maybe is more stuff, and I'm talking like carts and bags and stuff, just stuff, right? So I'm walking along, and he looks at me, he points at me, and he says something, and I couldn't hear him, so I tapped my earbuds to pause. I say, well, excuse me, and he says, hey, are you going to Smith's? And I'm like, so I said, no. You going to the gas station? I said, no. So I don't know what else he said right after that. And I said, I'm just going home, just out for a walk. He's like, hey, if I give you some money, can you get me a Heineken from the gas station? Now, the gas station is Terrible's, if you're familiar with the brand. So it's a convenience store gas station. And I was like, I wasn't really planning on going there. He's like, if you go, can you get me? And then I'll meet you halfway. I said, well, I wasn't planning on walking back here in general. I'm just going home. So he kind of did a little negotiating. He kind of guilted me, and I'm like, all right, fine. So he gives me the 28, I think it's 28 ounce. I call it a tall boy. The person at the convenience store part of the gas station did not know that term, but you'll see these PBR will be the tall can. So they usually call them tall boys. The person at the counter said, oh, I normally think of the 40 ounce bottles as tall boys. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I go in there. The guy wants a 28 ounce tall boy Heineken. So I go in there. They have a refrigerator section. You walk into the refrigerator. They got beer on all the shelves and whatnot. There is no Heineken in a can. And it was going to be $3. It was going to be like $2.99, I think. So the guy gave me $7. He said, keep the change. And I was like, okay. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know his situation, whatever. I just spilled some tea on my foot. That's nice. Sorry for the pause. All right. Quick pause to clean up there. So he pulls out his wallet. He gives me $7. Keep the change. I'm like, I'm not planning to keep the change. So, okay, whatever. So I walk over to the Terribles. There's no Heineken. So then I've never actually been in the beer fridge of this place. I think I've been in this convenience store maybe 5 times ever. So, in fact, I had my Freddy's. It used to be called it was a Freddy's gas station. Now it's Terrible's. Okay, whatever. If you're not from Vegas, don't worry about it. It's like 7-Eleven and Circle K, right? Okay, similar but not quite the same. So I said, oh, I have my card. And he's like, oh, that's for Freddy's. We're not a Freddy's anymore. And I was like, oh, that's how long it's been. And I literally live across the street. So that's how much attention I'm paying. So, but anyway, so I'm in the fridge and I'm looking around. And I'm like, oh, they have Heineken glass bottle, not 40, but it's 32 ounces. And it was $2.69. I was like, I wonder why he would want the can. I guess the can would be easier to deal with. But, so then I did a little executive math. I'm like, I think it would just be easier to hand him a bottle and wish him well, not have to explain that they were out of beer or whatever. And I actually said, do you want me? I could just go to Smith's. He's like, no, they have it at the gas station. Okay, whatever. I was planning on going to Smith's, but I didn't really want to involve other people in my grocery shopping plans. So I go get the bottle and I'm walking back. And now I have a little bit more change than he was planning for. So I get there and he's like, and I have my earbuds in, but I have my phone in a little like shoulder purse thing because my gym shorts don't have pockets. So I always have this thing over my shoulder. It's like the size of a small paperback book, and it just goes over my shoulder, and it crossbody strap thing. And I keep my phone in there, wallet. I have a front pocket wallet, but so that's in there because I don't have any pockets. And my keys, which I don't need, but I have keys in there for if I want to check mail or something. So there you go. That's in there. And I have my little mini, what is it called? A mini manager, I think it is. It's a Swiss Army knife, Victorinox. By the way, that is how you say that. I actually contacted Victorinox and asked them how to say the name because somebody, when I worked at Apple, said, no, it's Vitrino. So I contacted them and said, is that how you say it? Well, how do you say the name? And they're like, oh, because it's a combination of Victoria, as in Queen Victoria, and I can't remember what the Knox was. So that's Victorinox. Okay, sure. Anyway, so I have this little pocket knife. It's got a bunch of tools. I use them all the time. And it happens to have a bottle opener. It's a weird bottle opener screwdriver thing. So the guy was like, "Oh, do you have a phone I could rent?" I'm like, "No, but I have the earbuds in." So I said, "I just have my MP3 player, so I don't have to carry my phone around." And he's like, "Oh, do you want to sell it?" I was like, "No, I'm using it." "What color is it?" I'm like, "It's black." I'm like, I hope he doesn't want me to show it to him. But anyway, so I interrupted him and said, "Do you have a bottle opener?" He's like, "No, I lost my bottle opener, blah, blah, blah." So I open the bottle. It's not a twist off. So I take the bottle cap off. Bottle's in his hand. I pop off the cap. I'm like, "All right, well, have a nice day." And he's like, "Thanks, man." I'm like, okay. So it ended on a good note. Now, the reason I'm telling this story was this. There was not a crowd of people walking by him. So it's not like he picked me out. But on the other hand, he was like, I don't know if he had asked other people. I'm assuming he did, but not a lot of people are passing through this area. Like I don't think it's a well-traveled spot. But he handed me money. Now he could have said, "Here's $5 and I'll give you money when you get back." But he handed me $7 for a $3 purchase plus tax. And, "Hey, can you go purchase it?" So that's kind of strange for me, but it reminded me that this has happened several times in my travels. And maybe it's good. I don't know. I used to tell people when I was still living in Sunnyvale that people would come up to me and ask me because it looks like I know things. And so there would be the casual stuff. Like if you're at the train station and somebody says, "Hey, what time does the train come?" That's kind of low hanging fruit, right? That's going to happen all the time. I was passing through because I lived on the other side of the train station in Sunnyvale from downtown, Murphy Avenue. So I was walking to downtown, my 5-minute walk, and this guy is Murphy is perpendicular to Evelyn Avenue. Evelyn Avenue runs along the train tracks, so I need to cross Evelyn to get onto Murphy perpendicular. So this guy on a bicycle is riding toward me on Murphy Avenue. It's not like he's to my left. So he's on the right side of Murphy. So he's like a car, right? So he's riding towards where I kind of am, and he veers over and kind of cuts across diagonally, and there's no cars coming. Rides right up to me. I think he had a coaster brake, but however he stopped, kind of, so very deliberately rides up to me and stops, hits the brakes, and says something like, "Hey, dude, do you know what time it is?" And then he asked me some other, like, "Do you know where this other thing is?" Whatever it was. Now, there were other people around, so I'm not sure why he picked me. Aren't I lucky? But this would happen a lot. This would happen all over, just because, walking around Sunnyvale, I was very pedestrian back then. I still had a car. Yeah, I had my Scion XB, Toyota XB, but very rarely drove it around town because I could just walk to most places. So there was really no need to drive unless I was going beyond El Camino Real. I could walk to coffee or Target or grocery stores, etc. So yeah, piece of cake. So as I would walk around Sunnyvale, people would, "Hey, do you know where this is? Do you know how far it is?" I think that was one of my favorite ones. Just random person walks up to me. "Hey, do you know how far it is to, I think it was to Gilroy or something." Like just out of the blue. I'm walking along the street just like you are. What makes it look like I know that? But I did know that. And it was weird because at the time I had just looked that up recently. So there was maybe a sign stuck to my back that said, "I know how far." I don't know. Very, very random. But this is not just in my neighborhood. So I used to travel a lot for work. I used to travel tons for Intel. Like every weekend I was somewhere. I spent a couple weeks in Toulouse, France. I spent a long time in Ireland across many trips, in Dublin and Leixlip and Cork and anywhere else. I spent a little bit of time in, where was I? Anyway, I was around Limerick. I was in Limerick. I never did go to Shannon. I probably should have. Anyway, so I'm in Ireland. People are asking me, "Hey, do you know this? Do you know that?" Like I'm not from here, but people would still come up to me because I was generally outgoing. I would spend a lot of time hanging out in Dublin, not in, what's it called? The tourist spot. I'm totally spacing on the name because I never went there. Temple Bar. So I went to Temple Bar once, and people people used to ask me, "Hey, you're from Vegas. What do you do there on the Strip?" And I said, my answer was always, and they would always get it immediately. I said, "You live here. Do you hang out in Temple Bar?" "No, that's for tourists." I said, "Right. So the Strip is not really where people who live in Las Vegas hang out. They go downtown or Summerlin or other." "Oh, okay. What's it like there?" And so it's very interesting. But people would ask me questions as though I lived there, and so that's fine. But I was in Toulouse. I was in a place called was that in the Monk's Kettle? No, Thirsty Monk. Monk's Kettle is in San Francisco somewhere. It was a beer bar. The Thirsty Monk was around the corner from the more Irish style pub place, which was, I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, Thirsty Monk, literally around the corner. One of the times I stayed in Toulouse, I stayed in a hotel between the Thirsty Monk and the other place, which is totally, why can I not remember? The Melting Pot pub and the Thirsty Monk. So I was at the Thirsty Monk, and I was sitting at the bar. The bartender kind of knew me. I mean, I'm in several times. I had been a regular at the Melting Pot. Ran into the bartender from the Melting Pot who was in visiting before she moved off to Dubai, and I think now she lives in Australia. So anyway, I was kind of a quasi local. So I'm sitting at the bar. This woman walks in, leaves her purse, and says, "Can I leave this here?" While she used the water closet. And she looked at me and said this. Can I leave this here? Can you keep an eye on it? And I said, "Sure." And then she looked at the bartender. I looked at the bartender. The bartender kind of gave the, "Yeah, he's okay." And so for some reason, in a bar full of people, she came up to next to me and said, "Can you keep an eye on my bag?" And she walks into the restroom, does her thing, and goes back out. Now we kept in contact while I was there, and we kept in contact after, and I think we have a few Telegram messages back and forth. This is a long time ago. It's not like we're in touch every day or anything, but it is interesting, and I think it's probably a good thing. I would rather people think I was trustworthy, or at least knew what I was talking about, than running away from me or giving me the side eye. Like if somebody ever asks you what time it is and they ask somebody else what time it is, like, do you not believe me? So I guess it's kind of good. I've always found this interesting, though. I think in my travels, when I interact with people and I see how they interact with me, I'm hoping it's a good thing. I don't know. I haven't been interacting with people so much recently. So I guess it's good every once in a while to be reminded that people don't recoil in my presence, especially if they need a Heineken. So the shutdown, I guess, is ending. I guess today there will be a vote in the House of Representatives if they're back in session. It's quite a kerfuffle. I did not read the continuing resolution or whatever the 8. I was looking for anybody that referred to them as the traitorous 8. If you are familiar at all with the history of Silicon Valley, you know the traitorous 8 from Fairchild, or from Shockley, Fairchild, on to Intel and all. So yeah, no reference that I could find so far to the traitorous 8, but the 8 Democratic senators, 7 Democrats and 1 independent, who caved. So of course that's the Democrats caved. Well, it's like, well, no, just enough, and none of them are up for re-election. So it's political shenanigans and whatnot. The negotiations sounded weird. I've heard 2 different sides of the story. I kind of think now, okay, one of the things I've heard is that this is a generalization and I'm only recounting what I've heard. It may be true. It seems like it could be true, but I don't know. So, but one of the assessments is Republicans don't care. That's like their platform. They don't care. They were going to hold out forever. Didn't matter. And there are probably some strategic benefits for the executive branch to not have Congress in play at all, or any of the government infrastructure, because they could just pay who they want, and ICE agents are being paid despite the shutdown and all this other silliness. There's some argument that the Thanksgiving holiday and air travel was a kind of a sticky point. Like that was just going to be the undoing of everything. There is some commerce concerns, like you can't transport things around the country if air travel becomes dangerous or halted. So there were more and more flights halted, certainly here in Vegas. The Las Vegas airport was one of the airports that had 10% reductions in flights in general. I don't know if that was split evenly between arrivals and departures, but whatever the case, I think planes do both. But it was probably good. It was going to have an impact on Thanksgiving, but it was having an impact on our tourism in general. And with the Formula One race coming up on the 20th, there's already probably going to be a negative impact on that. So the word on the street here is that Rosen, one of our senators, was definitely hearing from the local resort community, like, "Hey, we need those tourists to come here. We've got these high prices for the rich people, and those rich people are not walking here." So I think that sounds reasonable, but the argument is that the Republicans would hold out forever. They don't care. Obviously, the whole SNAP war, where the Trump administration doesn't want to pay any SNAP benefits, and they're fighting against Supreme Court and other. Now, was it? I think the Supreme Court. Yeah, the Supreme Court ruled that they could delay paying, so they put a stay on the lower courts requirement that they pay the SNAP benefits in full for November. So just total ridiculous. There's a whole bunch of ridiculous stuff going on there. But so my take was, yes, the Republicans were going to wait forever, but the Democrats actually care about people. That's a tough generalization, and it's hard to believe sometimes. But some people who are like, I know, I've talked to some Democrats, and they actually are concerned that people are hungry, or that they're not going to be able to see their families for Thanksgiving, or all this stuff. So that they really do care. And we live in a cynical world, so it's hard to buy that completely. But okay, so maybe this cave is more strategic, but also more humanist. It's hard to say. There are some takes that once this, once SNAP benefits flow, and once air travel eventually returns to normal, even if this takes place, the government has not yet reopened as I'm recording this, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks. And then if the Republicans refuse to negotiate as they promised, in pinky swear, air quotes, promised to negotiate on ACA credits and whatnot. Because so the take home is this: from what I understand, even though Chuck Schumer is getting all the business right now, he should resign. He's too old. I don't know, but allegedly the Traitorous Eight began this negotiation immediately on October 1st. And it was Mr. Schumer, Senator Schumer, in fact, who was negotiating with them to hold off on this vote to execute their negotiated settlement, if you will, in the Senate, to hold off until the elections. So there was some arguably positive news about the Democratic Party's wins, quote unquote wins, in different places. The Virginia and New Jersey were high profile. The Mamdani mayoral race, of course, high profile. The Proposition 50 vote in California for redistricting. Is that a word? Very high profile. And then there's some other sort of normal races going on. And the Democrats fared very well. People with a D after their name did well. So arguably, I mean, we'll see how this shakes out over time, but in the short term, plus the SNAP behavior, and the people got their November 1st, they started learning about their premium increases. I'm hearing people say, I'm spending, 3 times, twice, 3 times, up to 4 times as much for my health insurance premiums now. I can't afford it, and decisions have to be made. SNAP payments being reduced to 0 in most cases. Some people got partial payments, and then that was halted at some point. So, and I talked about this in an episode of some other program that I produce. SNAP payments are helpful to humans, and people that argue against such things are, oh, that's just a handout. But what people don't understand is that government one of the things government has to do is maintain its economy and society. And so one of the reasons you have a government, I'm not going to say owned, but it's a government backed currency, is so that you can inject that currency into the economy. So for example, the government could give money to Walmart. That doesn't help anybody. So you give money to people who require assistance. They require some supplemental nutritional, what does the A stand for? Assistance program, SNAP. So you give money to them. They buy things from Walmart or their selected grocery stores. So the market decides where the money is spent. The companies can set their prices accordingly. They accept SNAP or EBT. So they participate in the program. They're able to accept that capital from the government. And in exchange, people get food. So it's a form of government capital injection into the economy, but it actually helps people specifically, and the people decide where the money flows. So that's one way that the government injects capital, right? So it's a little bit more complicated than it's a handout, right? So, because for some reason people don't have a problem with tax incentives being given to Walmarts and whatnot, but to actual people, that's not fair. So that's a whole nother thing. People have lost their way. They don't understand how society is supposed to work. But anyway, so the SNAP stuff. So all these negatives were piling up between October 1st and what was it? Friday? The Friday they decided on the 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, November 7, November 8th, somewhere in there. They did this vote, and so here we are. So it'll be interesting to watch. I think if people don't pay attention, it's very easy to pick a side and then get back to your normal day-to-day. But I think this is very interesting, and it will be interesting to see how strategically this works out in the near term. And then, it's basically a one-year countdown already commenced for the midterms. And so between now and then, there will be a whole host of maneuverings, and there will be a lot of finger pointing, and there will be a lot of claiming credit for things. I'm just excited to get out of the Biden economy. Apparently, we're still in the Biden economy. So, and as I just said the other day to someone, none of our presidents have been great. Everybody's, I wish we had a real president like so-and-so. If anybody who's paying attention knows that there have been a whole host of problems and failings, because they're humans. Humans hold the office, and they have their own agenda, and they have people that are backing them, and they have... I think the number one problem is that we have a donor class and we have the working people. I think it was underplayed, but I think the Democrat Party, is it the Democratic Party or the Democrat Party? The DNC, during the Biden kerfuffle when he was going to step down, and then he endorsed Kamala Harris to run. Okay, great. They kept saying, well, they've had a meeting with the donor class. That was one of the undoings, right? And the Republicans have donor class as well. So they're just much more obvious about it, but neither of them are not obvious. And I think that's one of the core problems. So it'll be interesting to see how the socialist stuff, I see that the Seattle elected a socialist mayor as well. LaGuardia was a socialist mayor in New York, got an airport named after him. So I think socialism at a city scale, or some version of socialism, so social democrat, democratic socialist, any sort of, people will argue right away, it's going to be like the Soviet Union, or I think at city scale, it's a very different thing, because you're much closer to people, and you're much closer to their day-to-day issues and quality of life issues and so on. And I think I don't know that government-run facilities are a good idea, but on the other hand, government housing is a thing. Housing projects, those are a thing. Food subsidies, should a government operate grocery stores? Well, there are some facilities that are kind of on the fence. They receive local funding, and they provide food services like food banks and so on. So I think when you take a microscope or a magnifying glass to some of these things, you're like, wow, that's a really fuzzy line. It comes down to, and my argument is always society and humans. And if you want to keep your society healthy, you can't always cater to the rich people, because who's going to buy their stuff? So It's going to be interesting to see. I'm interested to see how this shutdown chaos sort of settles out for the near term. It's going to revive in December, and it's going to be, it's going to be all the way until the midterms. This will be a thing. But now onto something more normal, or more upbeat, I suppose. So I was recommended by the YouTube algorithm a video by someone called Lori Wired, Laurie Wired, Lori Wired, and I was following this person, so I'm subscribed to this person's channel. So I apparently had seen this before, but it had been long enough, so I didn't even remember that I was subscribed to this channel. She is a super nerd. She worked at Microsoft and now works at Google as a researcher. And she calls herself a reverse engineer, which is a thing if you are into any of this stuff. I've done my fair share of reverse engineering things. It's fun. It's arguably more interesting than making things, is figuring out how other people made things. So she's a reverse engineer. She was doing an episode of her program on YouTube about who did the presentation. It was I can't remember, but it was a presentation on what happens if you have a nefarious compiler that builds in some sort of vulnerability that becomes pervasive. So what happens if you can't trust your compilers or something? And it was she was talking about a talk given by one of the co-founders of, was it Unix or was it C? I don't know if it was Kerrigan or Ritchie. Maybe it was Ritchie. Whatever the case, you can, if you're really interested in this, you probably follow her already. It was way more interesting than, I should be watching more of her stuff. It's very interesting. So what raised an eyebrow for me, because I have to be honest, when I first started watching it, I was like, she comes across as a normal person. She's not like she's not visibly a super nerd until she's talking for a while. And then you say, oh wait, she is a super nerd. So she had a picture of the fourth language, all the various people who have contributed and have forks of the entire fourth universe. If you're familiar with fourth, it's kind of a weird thing. I was programming open firmware for a while when I was at UMax, so I did my share of fourth, and I got to know Dr. Ting, if you know Chan Hensen Ting. He was a fourth luminary, no longer with us, unfortunately. So he was on our team. Cool guy, very cool, fourth expert. So when she showed this stuff, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And she said, so I did some coding in Fortran to have it self-generate its own code. When you run the code, it spits out its own code. I was like, oh, that's it. She said, oh, and I have Fortran as one of my languages in my GitHub repo, so that's kind of fun. I was like, I kind of miss the days of I want to see how this works and understanding how things work. I do that, and I've been doing that, and that's all fine. But I think it's really easy to get bogged down in the stuff that you're trying to accomplish. This happens to me all the time. I have a ton of stuff that I want to accomplish, but then where do you start and so on? So the notion of what, I've never actually, I wrote some COBOL code during the pandemic where they're like, oh, COBOL programmers, we need more COBOL. So I'm like, oh, maybe that'll be the thing. So I did a little COBOL and I was like, yeah, that was kind of cool. And then that died down. So, okay, well, I'm not going to be a COBOL programmer anytime soon. But the take home was, it is fun to learn new stuff for some, including myself. So in watching this video, I was like, you know what, that does remind me. First of all, I should learn Fortran and COBOL. I really should learn Lisp. I've never taken the time to sit down and learn how Lisp works and actually do real things with it. There are so many variations, scheme, and is it Cloture? And there's another one. I cannot remember. There's variations on Lisp. Lisp is one of those fundamental things, and really, I should learn Lisp. I have no idea how Rust works. I have some idea of what it's doing and the checkout scheme and traits and all this. So I've heard little bits and pieces. It's like seeing clips of something, but never watching the entire movie. So something of an aha moment, like, you know what, I did like learning things. I should be spending more time learning things. So if everything is about like, oh, I'm not accomplishing what I want to accomplish, as far as like a production, like I'm trying, like if you're trying, you know what, okay, to use a cooking example, because I always do, if you have a giant meal to prepare for, you're having 1,000 guests and you're, oh my God, I got so much to do, so many pasta dishes and so many, but then there's the amuse bouche. If you're a Top Chef fan, you probably were like, oh, I didn't even know what that was. Now I do. The amuse bouche, something to keep you busy, a little side dish that's very quick to prepare and all this, or it could be quick to prepare. Like every once in a while, there should be something that's fun or interesting or that isn't on the main timeline. This is what hackathons are supposed to be, as a diversion for if you want to have a company hackathon, or the personal Fridays where you spend Friday on your own project, a 20% project, right? So spend 20% of your time, or one, as if one day is 20%, right? They're not going to let you spend, it's going to be a few hours on Friday. Google, I don't think even drives this anymore. But the notion of like, you know what, I work all the time on the thing that we're trying to build. Every once in a while, I should have some fun with what I'm doing, or try to learn something new, or try to experiment with something off the path, not on the main line, so to speak. So that was a good reminder that I haven't really been doing that. So Lori Wired shines a light on what more people should be doing every once in a while, which is reading and learning and figuring things out, and not necessarily worrying about your production project that you are spending the rest of your time on. Every once in a while, you do a little side gig, you do a little side investigation, write something in Fortran, perhaps. And I just saw that I misspelled Toulouse, which is crazy. Anyway, that's what I got for you today. A little midweek coffee solo. And I have not even had coffee today. So I'm going to go make some coffee and get on with the day, and maybe try to learn some Fortran. I've actually done a tiny bit of Fortran, so it's not learning it from scratch, but I gotta learn the syntax again and then go from there. But I did compile a quick hello world. My Fortran compiler is ready to go. So am I. Thanks for listening. As always, don't forget to check out all my various other audio programs, all that stuff. And I'll leave it there. Thanks, and take care.